Hello everyone, welcome to another tech walkthrough. My name is Ken and today I'm going to show you how to connect your Obsidian instance with an agentic sort of workflow. By now you've probably heard of Obsidian. It's the second brain where people are using it to connect nodes, tweets, events, research, learning, all that sort of thing into one knowledge base that you can now interact with. The key there is that you don't want to have a library full of markdown files that you've manually created yourself. So people are using agents for this. You've probably seen Claude Code, GitHub Copilot CLI, sort of demonstrating this and helping people write out notes for what they've learned and things to do, tasks, all that kind of stuff. However, if you've seen my previous video, I am passionate about local AI, open source. And so you'll see now in this demo, I'm going to show you how to actually orchestrate agentically through Obsidian for some normal workflows, but more importantly, that never has to leave your computer. It doesn't go hit an AI provider somewhere, and there's no exposure to your primary data and information. If you could think about the second brain concept, this is going to be stuff that you might have more sensitive to you. So do you want to really send it over the wire in the network? Probably not. So I'll go ahead and walk you through that right now. I'll go ahead and share my screen to get started. Let me pull this up over here. Let's see. All right, so to avoid any confusion and during the demo and walkthrough, I'm gonna kind of give you a quick overview of some things. So first and foremost, I'm calling this project Obsidian Agent. This is in the GitHub repo available to you. It's public. The link will be in the description of this video. And so basically the high level Obsidian Agent is using a CLI that you can interact with natural language, again, powered by an agent locally on your device. And you're talking to Obsidian CLI, although through the masking of an MCP server you're spinning up locally. And the key of that is if you looked at the Obsidian CLI, if you've done the help command, you see there's a ton of commands. And as you know, the more tools you load up, the more your AI has to try and figure out what to do. So I've kind of scoped those tools down, sitting behind a MCP server that is telling the agent what is available. So walking through that, I mean, you need, for this setup, you need Docker desktop, model runner or whatnot. However, again, you can supply your own local model however you want, whether it be through direct Llama, CPP, Ollama, whatever. You do need Obsidian. Obsidian is one thing that is absolutely required, and it actually needs to be running. The CLI is actually not accessible if the application is not running. So skipping down to how I'm going to run this project, and I have a script that does it. Basically because the MCP server is hosting a .NET API, so I don't want to have to start my CLI and start my API. I just start that with one command, make it easy. Also, if you run the CLI by itself, it will try to automate that for you as well. But the thing about the script is it also does a couple extra things for you as well. But you can go in and actually run .NET Run Project CLI and verbose, and that will actually start the project. But again, I'm going to use the script just to obfuscate some of that stuff. So I have a bit of configurations here. I'm actually going to override the model. Instead of using the OpenAI's open source model, I'm going to use Gemma 4 today, since that's one of the latest hotness that's out there for model usage. You have multiple vaults. If you're familiar with Obsidian, you know that you can have multiple vaults in your machine. I have a sample baked here in the repo just to keep it plain and simple so you can actually spin this up. And if you have .NET on your machine, you can just run it right out the gate. So taking that dependency away there. And then here's a list on some of the MCP tools. You can have daily notes, updating tasks, knowledge graph stuff, finding your, links between entities and that sort of stuff. So that's the basic overview of the technical side of it. I'll dive into next the feature set. Again, this is all, built into Obsidian stuff, so you can read more on it later, but some of the tools capable are just dealing with notes. The search context is awesome. You don't have to worry about doing your own custom search. Obsidian has a search mechanism within, traversing through its own files and graphs, notes, stuff. And so you can actually use that. The aspect stuff I mentioned with the graph, finding links to different things, things that are all by themselves don't actually link to anything. And this is actually kind of, if you think about it, if you have a list of a big data bank of notes for yourself, you can actually figure out, hey, I have this idea, and you can figure out, hey, this isn't connected to anything that I'm doing in life. So maybe I want to hold off on that, or what have you, right? If you're working on workflows. Task management, daily notes, that sort of thing. Journaling is really big. So as you're learning stuff, especially in the advances we have today, everything you're learning and picking up, you should be able to journal and write that out. So that way you can come back to it later. So that's just some helpful stuff that Obsidian kind of does. And again, you see the tool listing here. So now I'm going to actually dive into the files, just show some quick overview of some stuff that's going to be helpful for you. This is the sample vault. I had AI kind of bake out some notes for me already. So I have some fictitious notes in here. I have a daily node. I have a few meeting node. I have some project stuff here. And this is basically going to help me interact with the agent here locally so you can see what is how this could be useful. You see the script, I'm running the startup here. So in the source project here, here's my CLI project. This is a .NET project as well as the MCP server. So you'll see some familiar .NET things. Again, this isn't, strictly just for .NET. You can reproduce this in, I've done this in TypeScript. I will note I've done this you can do this in Python. There's a ton of different ways you can do this. So this is just how I'm running this right now, but just know this is agnostic to the language. Don't get, if you're not in the .NET land, don't get discouraged. You don't need it. So you can use whatever tooling you like. So in this example, if you look at the key parts of this program, I'm going to show you I am needing to say, okay, what is the MCP endpoint I'm going to use? What is the project path so I can run it? This enables me to be able to start up my MCP server from the CLI without having to start both separately. It detects if it's not running. If it's not running, it starts it. So we're going to do that today. This also is the endpoint. If you notice, this is the Docker model runner endpoint that I'm using because again, my AI is completely hosted on Docker, all local. I do have the open source OpenAI model as a default, but again, I'll show you how to override this with Gemma 4 because you can specify your own AI model directly in the command line. So by setting an environment variable. So that's here nor there, setting up the MCP server. I'm going to get down to the bread and butter of it. This is your client. This is how you connect to the MCP server. No big news there. Now, here is the part. So this is how I'm connecting to the Docker model runner. Basically, again, the endpoint that we specified earlier, and Docker can surface it as like it's a OpenAI endpoint all on its own. So it's modeling after those type of the completion routing format and all that sort of stuff. So if you look at what I did for setup, there is, you notice I'm using Microsoft Agent Framework, which makes it super easy out of the box to get this stuff streamlined. So I have a system prompt and I have my MCP tool set to my agent. So now my agent has availability to the system tools. Let's take a dive into the agent instructions really quick. So if you look at it, it's giving some preliminary, okay, your Obsidian agent, you have access to nodes, you can do search, all that sort of stuff. I'm giving it a kind of a layout and a rundown of what it does and is capable of, and to kind of give it a starting point and kind of even letting folks know about integration ideas. So that way, when you're running this out the box, you don't have to actually go do any research, just talk to it. And it'll tell you what to do. It'll tell you what it can do, I should say. And so that's the note there. Another piece of information here is that I am using, again, the Obsidian CLI is sitting behind this, right? So I have a CLI runner, and basically I have Obsidian is the starting path here. And I'm basically calling, creates, deletes, all the different things. I'm doing that with let's see here. I'm looking for, let's see. Here we go. So here's more of some of the stuff you can see, like daily append, and you're adding your content in and all that stuff. So when you notice here, there's a few things I have to do for some character escapes and different things like that. But if you go down to this run property here, let's go down to the definition. You'll see that it's basically using the CLI runner and it's just running the basic command. So looking at the CLI runner, it's just, processing file info, and then you're good to go. The configuration will show by default that I have a command that is set to Obsidian, and then this kind of has the default sample vault name and some, project information for your templates, daily notes, all that kind of stuff. I do have what we call a verbose mode. And what that does is it allows you to see more information. So when I was troubleshooting this, I want to see some of my tool outputs and different things like that. For the sake of this demo, we don't have to do that. We can see direct tool, what tools were called without going through all the information that was processed up until that point. So getting back to it, I think we've kind of covered the preliminary basics so you kind of have a good idea of how this thing is running. So let's go ahead and get started by getting into our terminal. So let's get that going here. I already have the terminal up. And as I mentioned before, I have a script that can just run this thing. So if you notice here, I have Gemma 4, 26 billion parameter model. I'm overriding the OpenAI one. again, just because, just because it's the latest model. So starting MCP server, there, we're good to go now. So if you'll notice the vault, I have it set to the sample vault, and I showed you that earlier with the notes. We're going to take a look back at that again here in a minute, just so you can kind of show a new document's going to be created for your daily note, but we'll show you that here. And then here's the model that's running, just so I, as a user, know if I've overridden it, if it took, or if it didn't. So now I'm going to start with, let's see, can you tell me what notes I have so far? And it's going to give me a list of them. Okay, it gave me the folder and everything. So it's got a general, got some daily notes here. Just to kind of take a look at it, we'll take a look here and see the vault itself. So you can see daily, it's got notes. It's following the same project structure. All right, so that being said, okay, let's do that. Let's say I don't have, let's see, let me just type it. I am unfamiliar with the platform. Can you tell me some of your features? All right, so now it's going to give me a knowledge bank of what it can do. Now, we covered this earlier. So let's say, okay, it's got some notes management, got daily workflow tasks, knowledge graph, all that stuff. Okay. Can you give me some, let's say, integration ideas for my daily workflow? Since you're currently including daily notes, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so morning briefing. All right. Okay. Can you give me my morning briefing today? So they got a smart capture here. I guess during the day, if you want to add some stuff to your template and clean up some documents, I think that's pretty good too. Let's start with the morning briefing. Let's just do that one. Can you give a morning briefing? Can you give my morning briefing? Let's start there. It knows what it is. Let's see. All right. Okay, morning briefing. Okay. Priority tasks, you have several. Oh, got to finish website redesign, review API migration docs, test MCP tools, start a homepage. Okay, it's got some stuff listed out here. This is reading from the previous notes. Let's say, okay, let's see what it did. It didn't add, it read daily notes, but didn't actually commit this. Okay, can you add these notes for my daily note for today? And this is going to say, okay, let's carry over what's missing. Obviously, none of these boxes are checked. Let's add it. Okay, so it added a daily note for me. I've appended it to your daily notes. Okay, so if we were to look at this file here, let's go see if we have a new file set up here in daily. Oh, it added it here on the bottom. I probably should specify where to, but that's an instructional thing. So let's take a look here. Okay, there it added my morning briefing task, all that good stuff. All right, we're good to go. Let's get back to it. Let's get back to the terminal. Now, what I want to do, can you add a task for me to, see, that will remind me to record a video on Obsidian Agent. All right, let's see if it adds a task. Okay, so I've added the task. You can see here it's appended to my daily note. What's nice about seeing the tool calls is you know exactly what it's doing here on the back end for Obsidian. So cool. All right, so it appended that note, and let's take a look now. So this stuff is kind of more, you probably haven't seen anything like shocking yet, because anything you could just do this directly through an agent. So let's see for, let's compare right now. If you were to, let's look at the overall knowledge of what this can provide once you provide this with agentic intelligence. So if you, okay, if you read through my notes, what would you say is my profession? I told it to create notes for an engineer, so let's see what it does. Based on the content, you are a software engineer or a technical lead. Nice. Okay. All right. So you can kind of see now I can start to derive some things based on what you know from my data. What are some things I do not have listed that I should consider? All right, so this is going to be very basic because obviously I put some scaffolded stuff in here. But what's nice is once you kind of really bake out that brain trust here, you can kind of start to see some more tailored information. If you're doing content creation, if you're doing, your regular career focused thing, the more insight and intel you get, now it can kind of help you coach you through some stuff, all that sort of thing. So you got knowledge synthesis, the why behind the how, you have great research notes, but lack of place to connect them. Man, all right. So here we go. All right. So if these were to be real notes, I could kind of start gathering these things. You have meeting notes, but dedicated notes for recurring one-on-ones would help track their growth, blockers, and personal context. Nice. So you can see if I were a tech lead, this is like some information I might want to take into my daily account. If I want to say, hey, I want to work on more proof of concepts, how can I schedule that into my day? If I want to do, whatever the growth areas you want, you can now have a personal assistant interacting with you. All right, so that's kind of just some of the bread and butter of what Obsidian can provide for you. I mean, of course, the use cases are tremendous. It's, having all this information and applying AI on top of it is really nice. But the key thing is, this is all local. Again, this is using Obsidian, and it's enabling you to be able to interact with a coaching sort of framework if you want, or an assistant framework, and be able to tie all your information to it, keep track of things. And if you want to commit your brain trust into a GitHub repo, if you want to put it in behind iCloud or Azure, whatever you want to do with it, you can actually then have that in a nice place to be able to reference and transfer later. So that way, again, if you have your local machine, obviously if it's local, your machine has any issues, restart, restore, you lose the information. So you can back it up and save it anywhere, hard drive, thumb drive if you want, however you want to do it. But yeah, this video was this pretty much sums it up. Let me know in the comments if this was helpful. If you'd like to see more videos, ask for, again, we're doing technical deep dives. So anything that's upfront on the market right now in the AI software engineering landscape, product development, whatever it have you, feel free to comment on it, like, subscribe, and we'll get you on more content later. All right. And until next time, have a good one.